I want you to hear a friend of ours, a reporter of ours that lives in Israel. His name is Barry Siegel. And I want you to hear a news report of what's going on in Israel from a biblical, spiritual perspective. You get this very few places.
Everybody. I'm here in the neighborhood of Mevaseret Zion. We live literally just 2 blocks away. I'm talking only a couple hundred meters walk from here. A rocket slammed in while I was in the shower. It was so strong, even from 200 meters away or even less to where we live. And you see in the background, there are police, there are rocket shrapnel pieces, and there are ambulances, and people are just being encouraged to go home. We're just reporting this. This rocket hit in Mevaseret Zion all the way from the Gaza Strip. So please keep us all in prayer. This is just the beginning of something that's bigger about to explode over in the Middle East. So shalom, everybody. Up top here on the Millennium Center, excuse my unshaven look, but it's been a late last night and early this morning, and we're doing all we can to help the people of Israel and those that are protecting our borders. Anyways, just so you know, it's now been confirmed that 800 Israelis were murdered by Hamas homicidal murderers, and those that were taken hostage back into the Gaza Strip are estimated to be at 100 civilians and soldiers. The number is still not quantified. Hamas claims that 4 Israeli hostages they were holding were killed by air sorties of the Israeli Air Force, but that's unconfirmed as well. We have about 173,000 troops, full-time troops and reserve troops that are amassing on the border with the Gaza Strip. We certainly have about 600 warplanes that can also contribute to crushing Hamas. As you hear the thunder or the planes in the background or rockets, I'm not sure which one because I'm not looking, but this is the situation in Israel. The numbers have increased of the young adults and those that were attending the music festival not far from the border of the Gaza Strip the other day. That number has grown from 260 to 270 that were killed there. It's a very shocking situation. It reminds us of the Nazis and the atrocities during World War II. And beyond that, we have over 2,500 injured. Hundreds of them are in critical or serious condition, so please pray for those families. Obviously, nobody likes to see a loss of life or destruction, but this was brought on by Hamas, and unfortunately, the people of Gaza will suffer as a result. There is now a complete blockade where no food is coming into the Gaza Strip, no electricity, and no fuel. And so it's black, darked out at night, and they continue to shoot rockets against Israel. Just as an example, last night they shot 100 rockets just towards the city of Ashkelon. One of the rockets also hit the Barzilai hospital, a direct hit. So they have no understanding of any kind of Geneva Convention. Is just ridiculous. We're talking about murder, demonized individuals who were funded by Iran and Abraham Raisi, and he had met, or the IRGC had met together in Beirut with Hamas leaders recently, about a week before this whole situation exploded. So we know that Iran has been funding it and is behind it. We will keep you updated as best as possible. I thank you for praying for the peace of Jerusalem and for the whole nation of Israel, our Jewish and our Arab residents. God bless you and shalom. Shalom from the nation of Israel. The IDF spokesperson's unit announced earlier this week that Israeli forces had taken full control of the Gaza border fence and are setting up countermeasures in places where that fence was breached on last Saturday morning. IDF spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari added in a statement that there have been no new incursions of Hamas ground forces into Israel since last Monday morning. However, there are still rockets being fired into southern Israel. Back during the fourth day of this war, I can also report to you that the IDF called up a bit more than 360,000 reservists, which is officially the largest such mobilization in Israel's modern history. There might have been a bigger one back in biblical times when the Philistines made a surprise attack or something like that. But this is the biggest one in recent times. The Israeli Air Force is also continuing to carry out heavy bombardments of Hamas infrastructure inside the Gaza Strip and has renewed the policy of targeted assassinations of Hamas leaders. It is also my sad duty to report to you that as of this recording, the IDF is reporting that 123 of its soldiers have been killed in action. When combined with the hundreds of civilians butchered in the opening hours of the Hamas attack, this brings the Israeli death toll to well over 1,000 innocent men, women, and children, with more than 3,400 wounded. Those numbers are both expected to climb as ground fighting and rocket fire continues. One of the soldiers killed in action this week is of particular strategic significance beyond the obvious human tragedy for his family and friends because he was killed on Israel's northern border in a clash with the Iranian-backed Hezbollah terrorist group. As we're recording this report, the clashes up north have been limited, and the White House has given warnings, both implicit and explicit, for Hezbollah to stay out of this fight. They better. The explicit warnings came in the form of direct public statements by United States President Joe Biden warning Hezbollah and its Iranian patrons not to take advantage of the situation. The implicit warning came in the form of the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier battle group being moved into the eastern Mediterranean. U.S. Air Force squadrons in the Middle East are also being reinforced, and shipments of munitions and supplies from the U.S. are being rushed to Israel. Many analysts have assessed that Hezbollah's leaders appear to have been just as surprised by the Hamas attack on Israel last Saturday as everyone else, and they weren't prepared to make an attack of their own. Having lost the element of surprise and with more IDF troops being mobilized and on the alert, Hezbollah's chances of achieving a strategic victory over Israel decrease with every day and every hour. No doubt Hezbollah and its Iranian masters are taking careful note of the response this attack by Hamas has prompted, both from Israel and its allies. Now, while all of this is going on, the civilian front has also been mobilized in its own way. Civilians have taken the government's advice to stock up in their homes with several days' worth of food and drink seriously. Communal bomb shelters, some of which haven't been opened up in years, have been cleaned out, organized, and stocked with emergency supplies in case there is a need for people to stay in them for extended periods. Neighborhood watch groups made up of volunteers, sometimes armed only with a baseball bat or a roofing hammer, have spontaneously formed in big cities and small villages all over Israel. This helps to also reassure children and the elderly that someone is watching to make sure what happened to the people living in so many Gaza border communities doesn't happen to them. Beyond these organic grassroots efforts, established civil society organizations have sprung into action. Humanitarian aid of all kinds has been deployed, and thousands of volunteers have shown up to help pack boxes full of food and household items to provide to internally displaced refugees, the families of mobilized soldiers, the elderly and disabled, and others who are unable to provide for themselves. Now, while all this has been going on, amazingly enough, another cornerstone of Israeli national life has also continued. I'm talking about Aliyah, the ingathering of the exiles from around the world. MK Ophir Sofer, Aliyah and Integration Minister, and attorney Avichai Cohen, the Director General of the ministry, have announced specialized support for new immigrants arriving in these challenging circumstances. Roughly 700 new immigrants are scheduled to arrive this week, along with hundreds of Israelis who were abroad when the war broke out and who are returning to help their homeland in its hour of greatest need. Indeed, the IDF posted images to social media on Tuesday morning of a chartered El Al flight landing at Ben Gurion International Airport, full of young Israelis who had been in the U.S. when they heard about the Hamas attack and immediately sought to return to Israel so they could join their reserve army units and defend this country. Well, I'll wrap up this report with a brief commentary. The atmosphere here in Israel is filled with grief and pain, but also grim determination. The scenes I've described to you in this report remind me very much of the stories that my parents told me about what happened on the American home front during World War II. 25% of my own family was murdered in the Holocaust. And when most of the young people were drafted into the military, those who were too old, too young, or otherwise not able to join the battle did whatever they could to support those who were fighting and care for those who couldn't take care of themselves. As horrible as this war has already been for Israel, the prospect of a ground invasion of Gaza, which most analysts agree will be necessary in order to achieve a strategic victory in this war, is even worse. Many more Israeli soldiers will inevitably be killed and wounded if that step is taken, and many Palestinians will be caught in the crossfire in the densely populated Gaza Strip, ruled by Hamas homicidal thugs. Now, I just want to tell you how wicked these Hamas leaders and these thugs and their terrorist army is. Because it was reported earlier this week that just alone on Kibbutz Aza, 200 bodies of murdered Israelis were found, burnt, and murdered. 40 babies were amongst that number, killed, and many of them beheaded. How gruesome is that, people? Rachel weeping for her children and not being comforted. On Kibbutz Be'eri, over 100 bodies found on the kibbutz. I'm sure shocking Israeli soldiers. So please continue to be urgent in prayer in the coming days and do what you can to send practical support to Israel as well. The needs are great and they are likely to be much greater going forward. And we're getting more and more requests coming across our desk to place more and install more bomb shelters across the northern and southern border. So I'm thankful to all of you that have partnered with METV and on social media, and together with Vision for Israel, we can win this war and this battle together.